Hey, Westside Christian family, this is Pastor Doug. If I could just add to this past Sunday's Mother's Day message, I would probably go back to that final third, I suppose, where we start talking about how Abigail was making a kingdom contribution, some input into David's life there, not just practically saying, hey, please don't kill us here, accept this gift, but teaching him, you don't want blood on your hands. God is going to take care of you. You don't have to do this yourself. And we did touch upon this idea, what about women not teaching men? We know that's a command in 1 Timothy chapter 2, in 1 Corinthians chapter 14. Maybe it pops up in a couple of places as well. It's been a major issue in the church probably as long as I've been alive. People question it, people debate it. I think the proper way to think about it is the way I said it. I said that it seems to me that God has given us some restrictions, and he's done that because of effectiveness and appropriateness. I don't believe that the scripture is teaching that women are incapable or less than in any way, shape, or form. In fact, just the opposite. When we look at Samson's mom and dad, his mom was definitely the more competent one. She was the more capable one. And we see capable, competent women throughout the scriptures. But we do know that there are times where things just aren't appropriate. We do know there are times where things just aren't effective. Even beyond that, we know that there are times when things are just natural and unnatural. And I think if you would look at life naturally, if you would look at the way that we just behave when left to our own devices, you would see it pretty much fits in with this small restriction that God has given us here. If you look at our congregation, you see that the ladies mostly go together and the men mostly go together. And that's not just that way in the service, it's that way when we start divvying up small groups. The ladies want a ladies small group, and they're not gonna want a fella there because it's gonna change things. And the men want a men's small group, and they're not gonna want a lady there because, again, it's gonna change things. If you look at the way I operate, I am typically going after men, not because I don't feel like I have anything to contribute to women, but it just seems more natural that way. It's just if you ask me to act instinctually, if I don't think about things, I go toward the men, and I think you see the same thing if you go to the women. One of the clearest places that we see this is the fact that we always have two little rooms in any building that we meet. One's for ladies and one's for men. And we don't even think about combining those. If we would, for whatever reason, say, hey, why don't we just have one room instead of two rooms? The first people to speak up would be the ladies. They would not want that at all. So you see just in the way we act that men tend to reach out to men and women tend to reach out to women. And it just seems to go that way. And I believe that all the Lord is doing when he says what he says in 1 Timothy 2, when he says what he says in 1 Corinthians 14, is just encouraging us to stay natural most of the time. Sometimes there are unnatural situations. I would think the Abigail situation was one of those. I think the Deborah situation in Judges chapter 4 was one. Deborah says, nobody else would stand up, so she had to stand up. There have been times in church history, even in my subset of the church, my denomination, if you want to call that, where women had to stand up for whatever reason. There were unnatural times where women did stand up and try to teach men some things. But when it's most natural, the ladies tend to go with the ladies and the men tend to go with the men. And Paul and God just seem to be reasserting that pattern, that most of the time, this is how it's going to operate. In fact, I would say it would be unnatural for us to try to force anything different. Wouldn't it be strange to you if I were to say, hey, I think I need to take all of our teenage girls, all of our 14, 15, 16-year-old girls, and me and them just need to go off in this room and I need to teach them because nobody else can teach them. They say, it's gotta be me. I get it. Wouldn't you say, Doug, what's your real motive here? This just doesn't seem natural. Why do you think you need to be teaching these girls? Reverse genders, it would be the same thing. Wouldn't it be unnatural if when there are competent men there to teach, some woman said, I've got to teach these young guys, or these 20-year-olds, these 30-year-old guys, they've got to hear this from me. Why? Isn't there something odd about that? So I believe that this is all that God and Paul are doing in these passages. In no way, shape, form are they saying women are less than, women are bad, women are whatever people have historically misunderstood these texts to mean. I think Paul and God are saying this is most natural, this is most effective, this is just a very small restriction that shouldn't bother you all that much. This is most appropriate. This is how things are going to turn out best. That's all I think that we're saying. And then you do see these other times where Abigail finds herself in a situation where the most natural and appropriate thing is to step in and do something. So every once in a while you see an exception to the rule. Most of the time though, this is the rule. Let's just do what's natural, what's appropriate, what's most effective. I would have added that if I had a couple more minutes. Thank you for allowing me to add it now, and I hope to see you again very soon.